Hello, my name is Dion, and I am the social worker in the Post COVID Clinic program. Thank you and thank yourself for your presence and attendance today. We will be doing a bit of reflection and introspection in this module called Observing Ourselves and Creating Flexibility. By the end of this session, I hope that you will be able to notice the impact of your emotions, thoughts, and behaviors, and consider if there are any other perspectives to bring to the situation. I want you to reflect upon and identify your values, recognizing the qualities that you want to bring into action into the present moment. In the module on managing emotions, we spoke about the emotions that you have felt during your journey: guilt, sadness, grief, anger, frustration, and fear or worry. We're not going to spend too much time on our emotions today, but I did want to show an interpretation of a feelings or emotions wheel that you see here. This one describes 7 main emotions, but there are different versions out there. The purpose of showing this to you today is to recognize the range of emotions that we can have, but that they can often spiral. So anger can lead to frustration, resentment, withdrawal. With sadness, guilt, and loneliness, grief and pain could follow. On the other spectrum, what follows happiness is gratitude and hope. We are allowed to experience multiple or at times contradictory feelings at once. At times, clients will say to me that they are overwhelmed with the guilt or the anger, that it is truly difficult to see other opposing emotions, and they go further into that spiral. But we can experience happiness alongside the sadness. We can care with fear. We can hope amidst the grief. Our thinking mind does a lot for us, and it deserves our tenderness and care as much as any other part of ourselves. Because we have so many thoughts that go into our mind, we often don't think about them, question them, challenge them. They can be interpreted as matter of fact. So it's that much more important to notice what our thoughts are saying to us, about us. I want you to think about the conversations in your head, about your post-COVID condition experience. If you were to hear and observe your internal dialogue, do any of these sound familiar? What if I worsen or deteriorate? I'm so useless. No one understands what I am going through. Is it all in my head? I can't get reinfected. If I get reinfected, I will be so much worse. Am I going to be like this forever? I'm just a shadow of my former self. I don't know who I am anymore. How am I going to financially support myself and or my family? I need to go back to work. Am I never going to work again? What if I never ... When you consider these questions or statements in your mind, what's the benefit or the positive in having this thought? Let's consider some questions to ask yourself. Is this thought helpful to me right now, in this moment? If yes, great. How? Let's explore that. If not, how can we insert something else into the conversation to interrupt that thought? Maybe considering what is a more realistic interpretation. Is this thought a worry? And if it is this worry 100% factual? Is it 100% accurate? Is it going to 100% happen? How is this thought or this worry shaping me? Is it reflective of what I want? What is this doing to my energy level? If we notice that we are having unhelpful thoughts and that the similar or same thoughts continue to be repeated in our minds, these thoughts have the power to become a belief. When you begin to have ongoing and repeated thoughts, they start to influence your belief system. Cognitive distortions are taken from cognitive behavioral therapy, and they are patterns in thinking that are often found to be biased, irrational, a thinking error by interpreting a situation in a particular way. The reasons that they can be distortions are because they are often not based on 100% fact or reality, or they don't give you the full picture. And I think from time to time, we all have cognitive distortions, but the difference lies in the frequency in which we have them. Do you have this thought pattern often versus rarely? The most common patterns and distortions that patients have shared with me include jumping to conclusions, which is number 5, or catastrophizing, which is number 1. Do these cognitive patterns, or maybe the others that are mentioned here, sound familiar? These thought patterns inadvertently create self-imposing rules which can cause inflexibility with ourselves. And you may not have these thoughts, have these patterns. But again, it is important to be aware of the power of your thoughts. So noticing if there are any themes or patterns in your thinking and trying to catch it when it happens. How do our thoughts and emotions show up in our bodies? The next time that you have a really intense emotion or a persistent thought, I encourage you to notice where and how you feel it in your body. What are the physical sensations? This is taken from an online source discussing how emotions and physical symptoms can go hand in hand. So with anxiety, you can experience a racing heart, shortness of breath. You can have sweaty palms or tremble, feel nauseous. In moments of anger, we often have clenched fists or a clenched jaw. We can also be shaky. In times of sadness, our bodies can feel heavy. There can be a tightness in the chest or other parts of the body. And there could even also be facial expression changes or changes within your posture. Imagine if you were experiencing these bodily sensations over prolonged periods of time. We talked about this in the Managing Emotions module about how our bodies are not able to stay in constant high arousal periods. So, experiencing longer term stress or anxiety or depression can have changes in the body. Some of them could include back, joint, or limb pain, stomach and digestive issues, issues in terms of your sleep or appetite. There is a constant feedback loop between our body and our mind. How we think and how we feel affect our bodies and influences our behavior. So feeling sadness can have thoughts of disappointment. Your behaviors could then include avoidance, avoiding past interests, or avoiding others. It could also include being more short-tempered. It could also involve a decrease in appetite or difficulties in sleep. Behaviors can continue to reinforce what we think and how we feel. Putting together what we've talked about so far, this diagram shows the cycle of how thoughts, emotions, physical reactions, and behaviors affect one another. But they also are connected and influenced by the context that you are in, your situation, the environment. An experience has multiple layers. If we understand the connections and the dynamics between all of these moving parts, we are more aware that a change or interruption can affect how you see the entirety of an experience. Let's take a few moments to pause and reflect. Press play and continue when you are ready. Also, when you do come back, kindly bring two pieces of paper and a writing utensil for an exercise. We discussed before break the relationship between our emotions, thoughts, physical sensations, and behaviors, and how they can all be impacted by the situation and the environment that we are in. If any part of that experience is unhelpful, how do we interrupt that cycle? Consider what happens when we redirect our thoughts and behaviors towards our values. How would you define values? Values can be defined as the guiding principles of how you choose to be or on an ongoing basis. They're not necessarily feelings or goals, but they are what fuels our goals, our guiding star. Think of values as directions. They are what guides your actions and decisions. When you think about your life, what were some of the most meaningful moments? When were you the happiest? At what points were the most challenging or difficult? Maybe consider what are the admirable traits that you see in a person. When you hear the news or stories, what do you think has the most impact on you and why? If you can change anything about the world, what would that look like? In any of these situations and questions, they speak to what you care about and is reflective of your values. So now, in the present moment, as you pause and reflect on what matters to you, what behaviors represent these values? What qualities do you want to bring into action? Putting our thoughts and behaviors to paper can be really helpful. There's something different that happens the moment we externalize our thoughts from our minds and we say them out loud or on a piece of paper. I think we are more able to check the thought, to check its accuracy, to see a different perspective, or even to challenge it. In cognitive behavioral therapy, a thought record is used to check for the evidence for and against a thought. In acceptance and commitment therapy, we consider the costs and the alternative. So if we combine all of what we learned today, our emotions, thoughts, physical sensations, and behaviors, we can look at what the costs have been. Did your thought cost you anything in terms of what you want in life? With this particular example, I worked with a patient regarding a situation that caused an immense amount of sadness. The situation was that she had a phone call with an insurance company asking for an update in terms of where she was with regards to returning to work. This was not a new conversation, but something was different this particular time. In all previous or past conversations, there wasn't this immense amount of sadness that she experienced in this conversation. With that emotion, she noticed that her chest was quite tight, and there was a feeling of heaviness in her body. Other thoughts and emotions came to play. She started to feel guilt and a sense of hopelessness. Other thoughts included the feeling or the thought of being useless, missing her old self, and the question, why can't I just go back to work? And then her behaviors followed. She canceled her plan to see a friend that day. She didn't eat for the rest of the day and she lost her appetite. And she didn't go to sleep at all either. She was quite restless and it affected how she was the next day. So with this patient specifically, I asked, what do you think was the cost of these thoughts and behaviors? And she said that she didn't have the kind of relationships that she wanted. Her friendships were suffering. Her health was suffering as well. We considered if there were any pieces of information that can help bring a bit more context. We realized that there was a lot of stress that was happening that week already. And the call was at the end of the day, at the end of the week. So the client's fatigue was at its worst. I asked if she thought she would have responded differently the next day. She acknowledged fatigue being a really important factor, the context of the day and of the week. Again, circling back to the earlier diagram, in the session about how a situation and the environment influences how you think and feel, and the emotional energy that you have in the moment. So we reviewed her initial thoughts, and I asked, if you did not listen to these other thoughts, what would have been the alternative? A changed thought was, I have to keep going. I still hope for better days. I know I'm not ready to go back to work, so I will put this thought in my worry jar and I'll go back to it later. But for now, nothing can be done. And we compared her changed thoughts with her initial thoughts. What would have been the alternate behavior? Well, she probably would have still scheduled a time to see her friend. Maybe it would just be more of a reschedule, or she just goes rather than to cancel. She would have eaten the rest of the day because she knew that eating can give her fuel, and that was important in terms of her energy level. She would have thought about her sleep hygiene guidelines, whether it was to just get up and do something until she felt sleepy, whether it was to journal and write down her thoughts so she can think about it later. Her actions would have been different than the ones that she actually did. So when we start to think about this idea of an alternative, I want us to consider these questions. These are just some questions that I ask patients to ask themselves. Would I think about this situation differently tomorrow? Or can the weight of what I feel today change the next day? Remembering that the intensity of an emotion can change day to day. Are there any pieces of information that can bring more context and understanding to what I'm feeling or thinking? Remembering that fatigue influences your emotional response and your energy level. If someone I cared about had this thought, what would I say to them? Or if they knew I had this thought, what would they say to me? Sometimes bringing a thought externally from ourselves and have it come from someone we care about, someone that we value, can help change that perspective. Considering what it looks like if someone was really good at managing anger, for example, or if you knew someone who manages the emotion of anger really well, what did they do? And then it brings into the surface ideas about how to manage that particular emotion by giving you suggestions on what your next action can look like. How do I want to engage with this thought or this emotion? Do I engage with this now, or do I process it later after giving myself some space? And I let this thought or emotion go versus what's the benefit of hanging on? And then finally, these two next questions I think are really important. Am I blaming myself for something that I don't have complete control over? What can I think of that reflects a more kind, fair, neutral, or compassionate view of my responsibility? Let's go back to the main or hot thoughts that we discussed earlier. And if we can insert a different or alternate thought, what would that sound like? I'm so useless. What can I do today? No one understands what I am going through. Is there truly no one? Or who does understand? Am I going to be like this forever? Forever is a long time. Let's stay in the present. Am I going to financially support myself and or my family? What financial option can I apply for now? I don't know who I am anymore. What are the parts of me that are still here? I need to go back to work. Well, I want you to consider what are you doing now to help with this thought. I am doing blank to help me get back to work. Am I never going to work again? Never is an absolution. I don't know that. And what if I never ... What if I can? What if I do? Let me take this one day at a time. If we refocus the thought to what matters, to an alternate, opposing, neutral thought, or if we keep the thought to the present, it can shift our experience. It could interrupt that cycle. At break, I had asked you to bring some paper and a writing utensil. For the first part of this exercise, I don't want you to write anything as yet. First, think about what you are like at your best in some important aspect of your life, whether that is at work or with family, in your friendships or romantic relationships, whether it's in hobbies and your interests or in your health. I want you to paint a vivid picture of yourself using adjectives or verbs, action, description words to describe yourself. Now I want you to pick a few words that really capture you at your best. I was recently part of an interview, and a common question they ask is to describe yourself professionally or personally in 3 words. Maybe this is something that can help you think of those few words that really capture you at your best. When you have those words in mind, I want you to write it down on that one piece of paper. And when you're finished, put that paper aside and take the next piece of paper. Now again, I don't want you to write anything as yet. I want you to think of a difficult feeling or thought that you have in the present moment. And this thought or feeling gets in the way of you being your best. Again, we're not thinking of a situation or a fact. We're considering a thought or a feeling. It might be a judgment of yourself. Words could be stress, impatience, fear. It's also a word that I want you to interact with for today. When you have this word in mind, I want you to write this word on the second piece of paper that you have. Now I want you to place the two pieces of paper side by side and take a few moments to consider the weight that these words have on you and how you are living your life. What is the relationship that you want to create with this thought or feeling on that piece of paper? How do you want to engage with that thought or feeling? Does it align with your values? And those words of you at your best, maybe perhaps you put the word caring or compassionate, hardworking, whatever those words are. I like to think that those words have not gone away or disappeared. They just may look a bit differently now in the behavior. So, how do you want to bring into action these words in the present moment? The post-COVID condition has multiple and many difficult conversations. Remember that you are making efforts to what can be changed. Acknowledge the challenges and the things that cannot be changed right now. But when you move towards and act on your values, you can shift your mindset and experience. If your values guide your actions, it can remind you of your purpose, your contribution, of what matters. Here are a few resources for mental health support and crisis services. Some of the resources are strategies when experiencing stress. Some are information and consideration regarding anxiety. The Bounce Back program works on gathering skills to manage low mood and mild to moderate depression or anxiety. There are also many apps out there, so these are just a few that provide meditation, mindfulness, help with stress, and sleep. The CBT apps are encouraged to be used in conjunction with therapy and therapists. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's presentation, and I hope you consider some of the concepts we talked about today. I will end by starting at the beginning. The first thing that I ask clients to do when I work with them is to start by observing their internal dialogue, to simply notice. Notice what you are saying about yourself. Notice what you are saying about your situation. Is it helpful? Is it coming from a place of kindness and compassion? I ask them, and I ask you to start from there. Thank you, and please remember to be kind to yourself and to your experience.